big but not so big move was the big ticket, Kevin Garnett getting shipped back to where it all began for him, the Twin Cities. Minnesota shipped Thaddeus Young, I think, to the Sixers.
Yeah.
Which
well, Thaddeus Young.
It was
played,
a three-team. It was a three-team trade.
No, maybe you're right, but he used to play for the
He
Sixers.
did,
so
yeah.
did he go right back?
Yeah,
for the
Thaddeus
Sixers?
Young did play for the Sixers,
Yeah.
and as far as I'm concerned, Thaddeus Young has always played for the
He's
Sixers.
gonna be a
'cause
Sixer for life.
I don't
okay.
really. They're gonna put his jersey up in the rafters.
They should.
I mean, as far as this Sixers team is concerned, Thaddeus Young is an
He's-
all-star.
He's the
compared to
superstar
rest
of the team.
So Kevin Garnett to Minnesota, which is on the one hand a feel-good move for the Timberwolves, for Kevin Garnett to end his career in Minnesota. But on the other hand, and our good buddy Malcolm Kellner, who is our resident Minnesota Timberwolves fan, he's from Minnesota, he can't call in. He's busy. He's doing a table reading for a movie.
Oh, nice.
So
Good for him.
good for him. I'd rather he called the show, but
Yeah, I mean, me too.
priorities.
I don't respect it, but
You were telling
I
me,
appreciate him telling us.
and he's a diehard Minnesota sports fan. He didn't like the move at all.
I don't think he probably hates it. Like if you went in to like I only saw him for a second and I said, "Hey, what'd you think?" and he just made a face. Like I don't think he really loved it.
Well, what I
is
think, and what we were talking about, I think what it is, what the move is, Minnesota's not really going anywhere this year. It's a move for them to put butts in seats in the second half of the season. His contract's expiring this season. They're playing it off. The greatest spin I've heard for it is that Minnesota's a very young team. Kevin Garnett is a wily veteran. What he can do for this team is sort of guide them on and off the court.
The only
teach
thing he
them
can
how to
teach
be
them at
pros.
this point is how to trash talk.
All he can teach them is how to jump up and swat
How
away
to
a
call
shot
some-
after a
How
whistle.
to call somebody a cancer to society in
That's
general.
What he called Charlie Villanueva cancer.
That's the only thing he could. Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, it doesn't seem like a great move for Minnesota. It doesn't seem like a move that's really in any way, shape, or form putting them on the right track towards a championship. And of course, they let Kevin Love go.
Yeah.
And by the way, ever since LeBron has come back from his stretch in Cleveland, where Kevin Love is now, that trade's not looking like a bad deal. Like a quarter way through the season, everybody was ready to throw Kevin Love under the bus in Cleveland, and he sort of just is the Chris Bosh of this Cleveland Cavaliers big three.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be the Chris Bosh, though.
It's just so tough for
Yeah.
three guys to play together.
I mean, I just don't think that Kevin Love is as bad as some of the harsh critics out
No,
there.
I think Chris Love. I think Kevin Love is a beast who just is lost in limbo because, I mean, you've got two superstars who dominate the basketball. Where does that leave a guy like Kevin Love, who's such a good player, but he's kind of in limbo because that's not. What does he do?
And bringing it back to the Wolves, so if the Wolves had done everything right, they could still have Kevin Love today, right?
Exactly.
You don't
That's how I
want
look
Kevin
at it.
Garnett. You want Kevin Love.
No.
Although, to be fair, I think they did the right move because Love, expiring contract this year, he was going to leave because
Yeah.
and he'd gone on record and said, I mean, he'd been very specific. He said, if they don't start putting some talent around me, he's like, it's very frustrating going out there and giving my all every night, and there's nobody out there to help me win a basketball game. So that got us thinking when we were at the dining hall watching ESPN. We were like, what are those? Minnesota, who did they pick? Oh, yeah, they took Johnny Flynn.
Johnny Flynn and
number
Rubio
6,
back to back.
Back to back, one decent. I personally don't think Ricky Rubio's that great.
I like Rubio, but I still don't think it was the right pick when you look at it overall.
And Johnny Flynn, who is no longer in the association. So what that got
Really?
us to thinking was, what if, now we've been turning the clock back a lot on this show. It's sort of like a turn back the clock night.
Yeah, why not?
What if we could turn back the clock to 2007, as soon as they got rid of KG, and look at the Minnesota Timberwolves draft? Who have they taken? And then take a look at the draft board and look at, who went off the board directly after this Minnesota pick, and then compile an all-star team of players that Minnesota could have and should have drafted. Now, the caveat being, first of all, hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah, of course.
Always 20/20.
So some of these players that I chose, I'll admit, were between 5 to 10 picks back.
And
So a lot more than just the Timberwolves skipped on them.
And I guess the other thing to consider would be if Minnesota had been building this team better from 2007, they may have not had as high draft picks, say, 4 years down the road.
Exactly, and they would have probably had to pay them. So we understand all of these issues.
So, but all that aside, let's
It's
make
still
fun
a
of
fun
let's
game.
make fun of the Minnesota Timberwolves because look who they could have had. So, Do you want to start or should I go?
I'll let you start. I mean, we can both go. I'll let you go, then I'll go for 1 year.
Let me show you. Let me tell you how I've broken it
well,
down. What I did was I made a list of 07, 08, 09,
Yeah,
10, 11,
I did that.
and who they drafted, and in my opinion, who they could have had.
Yeah,
and then at the end of all of that, I've got
I
here's
made
their
my starting lineup.
I've got
I did
here's
the
their
same thing.
current starting 5, and here's Jeremy's Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay, I didn't even put
five.
their current starting 5, but you can read that at the end.
Okay.
But I did basically the same thing.
So-
but I want to. Okay.
No, you were.
Well, I was gonna say I just want to start in 2007, where they drafted Corey Brewer at number 7. So
Yeah.
So that's what happened that year.
They took Corey Brewer, and then also they took Chris Richard in the second round. They took a pair of Florida Gators.
Yeah.
And the one Florida Gator they didn't take, but they
Exactly.
could have
I had
taken
the
in that
same
draft,
one.
was Joakim Noah.
So we start off with the same one. I agree. They could have had Joakim Noah 2 picks later.
And I'm going to do you one better, Andre. So that was a first-round pick and a second-round pick with Brewer and
Yeah,
Chris
I didn't even
Richard.
look at the second.
You know who they could have had a few picks after Chris Richard was Marc Gasol.
Oh man.
So I've got Joakim Noah and Marc Gasol instead of Corey Brewer and Chris Richard.
Okay, so I got a pencil in Marc Gasol. That's a good one. I didn't even notice that. So Marc Gasol goes in the second, so they make that mistake. Okay, so those are 2 great centers they've got already.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, if ideally, don't you want to build your team with a dominant
Yeah,
big man?
exactly. And all of a sudden you've got 2. I mean,
It's amazing.
I-
And more on that later, by the way, to foreshadow a few years down the road in my pool.
so let's go to 2008.
Why don't
where-
you go, because I went first.
Yeah, okay, so that's the year. This is the year they traded for Love.
Right.
Which
I just considered them drafting Love. Right. They
okay,
did.
they
drafted
technically
OJ
speaking,
Mayo.
they drafted OJ Mayo and they traded for Love. Which I wrote is technically the correct move.
Which was a great deal, by the way.
Which it was the correct move, but they're morons because they could have just taken Kevin Love and they wouldn't have had to give up pieces to get Kevin Love.
But
which
they ended
is,
up with Love.
Okay, so they ended up with the right move, even though they took a circular route to get there, a circuitous or whatever word you want to use route to get there. So that's the end. At the end of the day, I put Love as my power forward.
That's a great move for them to get Love. And just to recap that draft, so their first pick they took Kevin Love, and with their second pick they drafted Mario Chalmers. Now what I have in 08, they could have taken, instead of Kevin Love, I would not have done this, but they could have taken Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I chose to keep Love because of the point guards that come later on, which we'll get to.
Smart man. And I looked second round, Andre. I did my homework on this one.
I looked at the second round on a couple, but I didn't really care that much.
So do you know who they could have had directly after Mario Chalmers?
Who?
One DeAndre Jordan.
Okay, so they could have had the animal.
So I've got an all centers team going on here.
I was
got
gonna say
Joakim
I tried
Noah,
to only.
Marc Gasol and DeAndre Jordan.
I was gonna say because once I had my one center, I didn't really worry. I figured Joakim Noah. That's all.
Well, I treated it like a fantasy draft. I'm just scooping up the best players available.
So you want okay? Fair enough.
And my starting 5 is all guys here. But just think about it. If you had 4 centerpieces like that, imagine the moves you could have made too.
Oh yeah, they could have easily gotten a ton. I mean, not right off the bat, but they could have gotten a ton for Marc Gasol after a couple of years.
Andre, and it's worth noting that there are 2 Emerson alums currently general managers of basketball teams in the NBA. So maybe if we play this segment correctly, we can land ourselves.
We can land a spot.
Maybe a coach.
Maybe as the Timberwolves.
Maybe a tandem. You and I tandem GMing.
Double
Minnesota
GM.
Timberwolves.
All right.
So 09, and this is obviously the big one.
The one that we find funny.
Because this is the one that they screwed up so badly.
Yeah. Okay, so 5 and 6, of course.
They have the 5 and 6
They have the 5 and
picks.
6, which looks tremendous on paper.
It's like, wow, we've got 2. I mean, imagine what we could
and
get.
I remember everybody was talking about the draft is really deep this year.
That was a fantastic
It was
draft.
a great draft, and everybody was looking at it and saying, wow, let's look what they can do with the 5 and 6 pick. So the first pick they made was Ricky Rubio, which I specifically remember at the time because I was buying into the hype of this kid. And people liked it.
And I don't hate that pick.
No.
At all.
No, me neither.
Ricky Rubio was one of the most hyped young
players.
The
kid was like 7. Okay, maybe he was probably 18.
He was one of the most hyped young players of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
we knew he couldn't shoot that well. He
obviously
was a project.
Obviously he's a tier below a guy like LeBron, but Ricky Rubio is a guy, I mean, we've been hearing about for years as the next big thing.
Yeah.
So I don't fault them for that pick.
So I don't necessarily.
So you take your point guard. You take your franchise point guard.
This is going to be the next guy. To which they said at number 6.
So yeah, right. We've got our franchise point guard at 5, and guess what? We've got the very next pick in the draft. And this, I almost think that's like draft hangover. That's like like, when, I don't know, in a fantasy draft, have you ever drafted out of the last spot or the first spot when you have back-to-back picks?
Yeah.
And you get your guy, and you're almost like, all right, and somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take whoever.
So I think this may what have happened, because then what they did after they get their franchise next big thing point guard in Ricky Rubio, the very next pick, they say, we're going to take Johnny Flynn, relatively unknown point guard from Syracuse. Undersized, can't really shoot, had a decent NCAA tourney, so we're just taking him too.
Is that one of the dumbest picks of all time? I mean, I remember people saying it even at the time it was a dumb pick, but when all things considered, and this isn't just hindsight, this is even at the time, like most of them are hindsight. When you look at like, oh, this number 1 pick was awful, it's usually hindsight.
Right.
But this was one where even at the time you could look at it and say, what the heck are they doing?
And then their next pick in this draft, in the first round, they had 3 first-round picks. It was like 18, I think.
Yeah.
They took Ty Lawson.
Yeah.
Who is
a good point guard.
I think Ty Lawson's a very good point guard.
He is.
He's sort of stuck in Denver right now.
Similar to Mike Conley, a very good point guard.
But that's what they do. So they take Rubio, who I grant them that pick. That's good. And then they take Johnny Flynn. And then later they take Ty Lawson. And then also, I went deep in this draft just because they had so many picks. They also took, in the beginning of the second round, they took Wayne Ellington. And then later in the second round, they took Nick Kalatis out of Florida.
Okay.
So
you clearly had more time than I did. By the way, I had class from noon all the way till 9:45. I'd just like to say.
Well, Andre, I was watching Seinfeld, and I really kicked back and opened up all my spreadsheets and let it fly for this one.
All right, but let's keep going anyway.
So that's 09.
So let's focus on the Rubio and Flynn.
So
thing.
Who could you have taken instead of Rubio and Flynn?
So my guys, and I'll assume yours as well. I had Steph Curry and Eric Bledsoe.
So Steph Curry, if you didn't remember, was 7.
Yeah.
So
he came directly after those two.
So 5 is Rubio, 6 is Flynn, and then Curry falls at 7.
To 7.
But let's just address that. To be fair, I'm a Warriors fan, and Steph Curry came out with a lot of question marks. He did. He was undersized. People said he can't play defense.
I remember.
People said he's really just a shooter. Is he going to be able to get to the basket? Is he going to be able to run an offense? Obviously, he's proven all of those things and more, and is now leading in the MVP race, or at least he's 1A, 1B with James Harden right now.
Yeah.
So that pick, a small amount of hindsight, because, again, I grant them the Rubio thing.
No, Johnny Flynn, there's no excuse for drafting Johnny Flynn above Steph Curry. Even at the time.
So and then
I said Eric Bledsoe.
You took Bledsoe. That's a very good pick. I took DeMar DeRozan.
Okay, that's fair. I actually hold on. Let me look at this. Yeah, I said Steph Curry. Oh, you know what? Actually, I did say DeMar DeRozan. I apologize. Eric Bledsoe's in a different draft.
So those are my 5, 6. Instead of Rubio, Flynn, I've got Curry, DeRozan, 5 and 6 in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I took DeMar DeRozan as well. Eric Bledsoe is in the next draft, which is why I don't know why I was looking at the wrong line.
And DeMar DeRozan is probably a starting point guard on like 20 NBA teams.
Yeah, well, DeMar DeRozan, he's a shooting guard, right?
Sorry, that's shooting guard.
Yeah, you're right. And I think he's the best shooting guard we've got to this point.
Right.
We'll have another one later on, but we'll talk about that.
And just because I went a little deeper in the draft, instead of Wayne Ellington, I took Jeff Teague.
Okay.
And instead of Nick Kalatis, I took Danny Green.
Okay, that's good.
So 2010, they had the number 3 pick this year. So they have 5, 6, and then what do they have? The number 3 overall pick. So to be fair, so we're saying, if they had drafted a little better, they could, not have so many lottery picks. They're doing these picks to themselves, okay? Because they just keep bungling these picks.
They keep making the mistakes.
Now they're at in 2010, number 3 overall, they take another another Syracuse guy, Wesley Johnson. And this is a guy who I was reading his NBA draft profile. I remember at the time, you could go back and look at it today, I'm sure, but I remember at the time looking at it, he was a guy who had a tremendous amount of upside.
He's an athlete. He's
an athlete.
He's just a pure athlete.
He was a total upside guy. And at 3, I don't know.
It was risky at the time, and it turned out to not work.
Because then, who I would have taken at number 3, fitting with the theme of my all centers team, is the great DeMarcus Cousins.
See, I probably lean toward. I wrote DeMarcus Cousins, Greg Monroe, or Paul George, depending on what you need.
That's what I wrote. I wrote Boogie Cousins or Paul George. And
So
Greg Monroe also.
yeah. So for my team, the way I when I finished up, all things considered, I took Paul George because I was creating a starting five. So I took Paul George.
Okay, so I took Cousins, and then I don't even remember who they took in the second round, but just because, and this
They
is
took.
to-
Oh,
and
I
then this
actually
is-
had this. They took Luke Babbitt. Or
Oh, okay.
sorry, no, they took Luke Babbitt not in the second round, but they took Luke Babbitt at 16, and they could have had Eric Bledsoe.
Okay, so you took
So
Bledsoe.
I took Bledsoe instead
That's
of
a
Luke
good
Babbitt.
pick. My pick, which is total hindsight, is 2020. Nobody would have made this pick.
Yeah.
I picked up Hassan Whiteside, who's having a tremendous
Okay.
year in
Yeah.
Miami.
I looked at that one and considered it, and then I said, well, that's not necessarily fair to them or to me if I'm looking at it because
it's gaming the
because
system
it
a little
just
bit.
happened. Yeah, exactly.
But look, I mean, this is total. This
No.
entire exercise is hindsight is 2020. So I'm
No,
taking
exactly right.
Hassan
I'm not.
Whiteside.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it or can't do it. I'm just saying when I was trying to think of mine, I was thinking, well, should I do it or not? But I understand why you did.
Yeah.
But I lean towards Eric Bledsoe regardless.
So 2011 is where we're at now.
Yep.
And we have a few more, just a few more before we reveal the all-time greatest starting five of all time that the Timberwolves could have had. 2011, they take
They
Derek
took
Favors again
Derek-
at 3,
Derek
right? Or
Williams,
2.
right?
Oh, sorry.
Derek Williams at
Derek-
number 2.
No, Derek Favors.
No, Derek Williams, right?
Why did I write Favors?
I don't know. I mean, let me look this up. Hold on.
I think I'm right.
Okay, we'll find out in a second. 2011 NBA draft, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll find out who's right and who's wrong. According to Wikipedia, the second overall pick for the Minnesota Timberwolves was, in fact, Derek Williams, and I'm right.
Okay, Andre, you're right.
Okay.
Well,
Either way, they both stink.
The point is moot because they could have had, and I've got two guys. It's a either or again.
Yeah,
Depending on how you want to
I
build
did
your
too.
team. I'm sure we have the same guys.
Yeah.
I've got Klay Thompson
Yep.
or Kawhi Leonard.
Yep.
So again, Derek Favors or Williams, excuse me, Derek Williams had again. That's a guy who had a tremendous NCAA tournament. Really, a guy who sort of cemented himself as a lottery pick by those two monster dunks he had against Duke in the Elite Eight, which were amazing, no
Yeah,
doubt.
I mean,
but
he was another athlete.
another athlete pick. That's back-to-back picks in Derek Williams and Wesley Johnson. Just great athletes.
Yeah, but it wasn't the right pick.
2012. So they've. I
didn't even do the
right,
2012.
Right, they gave up all their picks. They stock loaded those picks for like those 3 seasons in a row. 2012, they had a second round pick. They took Robbie Hummel out of Purdue, who's
Yeah,
a very
I
good,
didn't
he had a
even
very
use it.
good college career. And in my opinion, there is nobody of note
Yeah.
that they could have had. I actually wrote nobody.
Okay. I would have traded the pick for a sandwich.
So 2013
They
brings
took-
us to Shabazz Muhammad.
Well, they took Trey Burke, and they traded him
for
at number 9.
For Shabazz Muhammad.
Yeah.
They took another point guard in Trey Burke.
And they traded him.
And they also took Andre Robertson.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see who you have. My guy who I take
Instead of Trey Burke.
is the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay, I did the same.
Okay.
I said you could have had Michael Carter Williams or Giannis Antetokounmpo or however the hell you say his name.
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo. I don't know. I don't
He's
care.
amazing. That's all you need to
Yeah,
know.
the Greek freak is what I'll call him, but
then
I
just-
said him as well.
Since we're up against it here, very quickly, 2014, they took Zach LaVine. I think that's a perfectly good
Yeah,
pick.
I kept it.
Obviously, amazing slam dunk performance. Not really showing too much right now, averaging 7 points a game. But again, not a bad pick. The jury is obviously still out on Zach LaVine. And again, there was no rookie this year who's absolutely tearing it up.
Yeah.
Who they missed on. So that brings us to their current starting 5 with the picks they did make.
Yeah.
Today, their starting 5, and Kevin Garnett will suit up tomorrow for his.
Yeah.
I've included him. Is point guard Ricky Rubio, shooting guard Kevin Martin,
Yep.
Andrew Wiggins at small forward,
Yep.
Kevin Garnett. Oh, and by the way, that's just an interesting note to make. Right, of course, obviously they traded
They
away
got Wiggins,
Kevin
yeah.
Love for the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
So that should be noted. In 2014, Zach LaVine wasn't their only pick. It was essentially Andrew Wiggins was their number 1 pick.
Yeah.
So Rubio, Martin, Andrew Wiggins, Kevin Garnett, and Nikola Pekovic starting at center, which
is a pretty good center. By the
he's
way.
a pretty good center, but on
He's
my,
not as good as-
but on my all center
Yeah.
team, that looks pretty bad.
He doesn't even fit in.
All the centers they
Okay.
passed up, and so I will unveil my starting 5 first.
Yeah, you
I'm
do.
sure I'm
Well, they're probably the same.
Well, they are probably.
I mean, Mayans. The only difference is I made my team, so I included some other guys who back up my starters.
I showed a bench too.
And so, but Mayans only first round picks. So the Mayans only if they just switched out their first round picks for the best guys in that also went in the first round. This is the team that they would have.
Mine too. So here's my starting 5.
Okay.
Steph Curry.
Yep.
Klay Thompson.
Yep.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
No.
Kevin Love.
Yep.
DeMarcus Cousins.
Not the same as mine, but okay.
That's my starting 5.
Yeah, okay. I like it a lot.
That's a damn good starting 5.
It's a dang good starting 5.
And my bench, I have
keep going.
I have Joakim Noah, DeAndre Jordan, DeMar DeRozan, Jeff Teague, Danny Green, Hassan Whiteside, and Zach LaVine.
I mean, it's pretty dang good.
And who is your starting 5?
So mine's very similar. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. So we've got your Golden State backcourt, by the way. Paul George, Kevin Love, and Joakim Noah. So I actually start now.
Wow. Wait, where did you pick up Paul George? That's a great move.
Paul George is...
Who did you take? Did you take him instead of Cousins?
Yeah, I did.
That's okay. You know, Andre, I was so busy stockpiling centers that now, again, hindsight being 2020, Paul George is injured.
Well, yeah, but I'm just using him on...
Sure. Giannis Antetokounmpo is
I have him as my backup.
Tremendous upside.
Yeah, he's my backup.
It's like...
I have Eric Bledsoe, DeMar DeRozan, Giannis, and Zach LaVine as some backups for me.
Really, I mean, just an astounding starting 5. Anyway, you cut it.
Can you imagine if they had those guys? They would have 10 all-stars. Like even say they make 3 perennial all-stars. If they made 3 good picks over the last 7 years, they could have 3 stars at least. I mean, it's tough. I mean, that's why it's so tough to be an NBA GM, though. I think NBA is the toughest because NFL, you get 7 picks and there's 7 rounds, and most players, okay, not most, but most players, if you get taken in the first or second round, you're probably going to be in the league for a little while. It translates well, generally speaking. Like, scouts are better in the NFL at picking out this guy's going to work, this guy's not going to work, generally speaking. In the NBA, there are plenty of misses. And when they miss, it's pretty bad.
And then so this is like our best case scenario starting 5.
Yeah.
Again, even if you hit on a couple picks, and so let's say like 07, 08 wasn't overly impressive. It's 09 where they really messed it up, right? With the Johnny Flynn
Rubio
thing.
and Flynn was...
So let's say you get Curry. He probably doesn't do anything that year. So you're probably in position to still take DeMarcus
Cousins, Monroe,
or
Paul George.
Right. And then who knows if you get Klay Thompson, you might get Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, Kawhi went in the middle of the round. So.
And then you've got Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, and DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, that's
starting 5.
That's easily good enough to get you to the playoffs, maybe farther.
Yeah. Again, so hard to hit, and seeing how Golden State somehow ended up with both of these all-world guards, really a tip of the cap to Golden State front office after years of mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, I actually went back farther than you. We've only got 3 minutes here. But you told me we were going back to 2007. You told me that in a text. I actually went back to 2005 because they took Rashad McCants that year. They could have had David Lee. And then 2006, they took Brandon Roy at 6. They could have had Rajon Rondo, Kyle Lowry, or Rudy Gay. So, I mean, I went back a couple other years just to look at that. I mean, they haven't made a good draft pick in about 10 years.
Now, to be fair to the Wolves...
Okay, I understand Brandon Roy was a good pick, technically.
To be fair... Oh, yeah, they traded Foy for Roy on draft night, right?
Yeah.
So, to be fair to the Wolves, what I propose is... I'm not sure which team. I think we should do this with another team next week.
Oh, yeah.
To see if it's just the Wolves or if it's the NBA as a whole, and it's just hindsight is always 2020.
I mean, the best way to do it, because we can't really do it with, like the Lakers or there's very few teams that you can really do it with because so many teams have a pick in the 20s.
I think why the Wolves are the perfect example is this is a team that sort of in the recent past and currently now, so for the past 7 years, they've been in rebuilding mode with lottery picks.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes them an attractive option to play this game with.
So maybe we could do it with the Bucks maybe. I'm trying to think of who else there would be. The Sixers, I guess.
The Sixers are a lost cause.
But I'm sure there's somebody else. We'll figure out somebody to do it with.
Is Robbie Hummel still in the league, Andre?
I don't know. The Purdue native? I don't know.
The Purdue great. He's the Drew Brees of basketball.
I mean, how long ago did you say he was drafted?
2012.
I'd assume he's still in the league. He's probably in the D League.
Let's see.
I'd assume he's in the D League.
Oh, we don't have time to do my proposed 3-division
No, we don't.
NBA
We got a
alignment.
minute left, according to this.
There's so much basketball I want to talk. But that was fun.
No,
That's fun.
it
It's
definitely
fun to-
was fun.
It's fun to play GM, and it really leaves
And
you
to
with this...
make fun of.
Andre, it really leaves you with a sense of superiority, doesn't it?
It does. Going back to drafts
By
that
the
we
way-
know 100% who works and who doesn't.
Sorry, by the way, though, Robbie Hummel is currently on the T-Wolves roster.
Is he really?
Yeah, wait, let's check the stats really quickly. This guy was a great Purdue.
He
He's
was.
a great college player.
Well,
great
he got
shooter.
injured, though, at one point, and I want to say it was an ACL.
4.2 points per game, averaging 3.7 in his career.
Well, yeah, I mean, after the injury, he never fully came back, really.
Yeah, so
In his senior year, he did all right, but he was never truly the guy he once was.
Robbie Hummel, the guy that never was.
The guy that could have been, what could have been with Robbie Hummel. Is we've got 5 seconds left. It was a great week, Jeremy.
It was a great week. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will be sure to see you next week.
On the 1-2 punch.
From the hub of the universe, you're streaming ETIN, the Emerson Talk and Information Network. ETIN is a broadcast service of Emerson College and WERS Boston. Join the conversation at 617-824-8100. ETIN, the Emerson Talk and Information Network.